So why is it that two people with the same degree, the same job, in the same area, working the same amount of hours, one becomes successful, the other is just getting by? And so I asked that question in a Facebook group, and the answers were amazing. But most of them would say hard work is what is going to determine if you're going to be successful, yes or no. And I am here to tell you that hard work alone is not going to cut it. And I want to really encourage all those people that are working really, really hard and not see the results that they would like to listen to this to the end, because you're going to learn something that you probably didn't know before, and that is going to make you feel so much better, because there is a reason. It's not you, and there is a way of changing it. So I would like to read in for this episode. I want to read out of Psycho-Cybernetics from Maxwell Maltz. And he is the one that said you can never outperform the vision that you have of yourself. So I'm going to read out of this, and just the beginning because it lays the ground. And then I would encourage you to really read the book, because you will learn why some people are successful and others aren't. He talks about what is success. I'm not going to go into all of this, but I want to throw it out there. I want to point to something. I want to change the idea that hard work is the only way to become successful. There is a lot of work involved, but it is not the only thing. And if you miss this key, it could be that you're missing out. So let me read. The secret of using this book to change your life. It's important, isn't it? Looks like it really can change your life, reading this book. For me, it changed my life. Discovery of the self-image represents a breakthrough in psychology and the field of creative personality. The significance of the self-image has been recognized since the early 1950s. Yet, there had been little written about it before Psycho-Cybernetics, this book. Curiously enough, this is not because self-image psychology has not worked, but because it has worked so amazingly well. As one of my colleagues expressed it, I'm reluctant to publish my findings, especially for the lay public, because if I presented some of these histories and described the rather amazing and spectacular improvements in personality, I would be accused of exaggerating or trying to start a cult, or both. I too felt the same sort of reluctance. Any book I might write on the subject would be sure to be regarded as somewhat or unorthodox by some of my colleagues for several reasons. In the first place, it is somewhat unorthodox for a plastic surgeon, Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon, to write a book on psychology. In the second place, it will probably be regarded in some quarters as even more unorthodox to go outside the tight little dogma, the closed system of the science of psychology, and seek answers concerning human behavior in the field of physics, anatomy, and new science of cybernetics. My answer is that any good plastic surgeon is and must be a psychologist, whether he would have it so or not. When you change a man's face, you almost invariably change his future. Change his physical image, and nearly always you change the man, his personality, his behavior, and sometimes even his basic talents and abilities. Beauty is more than skin deep. A plastic surgeon does not simply alter a man's face. He alters the man's inner self. The incisions he makes are more than skin deep. They frequently cut deep more into the psyche as well. I decided a long time ago that this is an awesome responsibility, and that I owe it to my patients and to myself to know something about what I am doing. No responsible MD would attempt to perform extensive plastic surgery without specialized knowledge and training. Just so, I feel that if changing a man's face is going to change the inner man as well, I have a responsibility to acquire specialized knowledge in that field also. Failures that led to success. In a previous book, written some 20 years ago, New Faces, New Futures, I published more or less a collection of case histories where plastic surgery, and particular facial plastic surgery had opened the door to a new life for many people. That book told of the amazing changes that often occur quite suddenly and dramatically in a person's personality when you change his face. I was elated at my successes in this respect. But like Sir Humphrey Davy, I learned more from my failures than from my successes. Some patients showed no change in personality after surgery. In most cases, a person who had conspicuously ugly face or some freakish feature corrected by surgery experienced an almost immediate rise in self-esteem, self-confidence. But in some cases, the patient continued to feel inadequate and experience feelings of inferiority. In short, these failures continue to feel, act, and behave just as if they still had an ugly face. This indicated to me that reconstruction of the physical image itself was not the real key to changes in personality. There was something else, which was usually influenced by facial surgery, but sometimes not. When this something else was reconstructed, the person himself changed. When this something else was not reconstructed, the person himself remained the same, although the physical features might be radically different. The face of personality. It was as if personality itself had a face. The non-physical face of the personality seemed to be the real key to personality change. If the remains scarred, disordered, ugly, or inferior, the person himself acted out this role in his behavior regardless of the changes in physical appearance. If this phase of personality could be reconstructed, if old emotional scars could be removed, then the person himself changed without facial plastic surgery. Once I began to explore this area, I found more and more phenomena that confirmed the fact that the self-image, the individual mental and spiritual concept or picture of himself, was the real key to the personality and behavior. More about this in the first chapter. Again, I highly recommend reading it. I have always believed in going wherever it may be necessary to find truth, even if international boundaries must be crossed. When I decided to become a plastic surgeon years ago, German doctors were far ahead of the rest of the world in this field, so I went to Germany. In my search for the self-image, I also had to cross boundaries, although invisible ones. Although the science of psychology acknowledged the self-image and its role in human behavior, psychology's answers to the questions of how self-image exerts its influence, how it creates a new personality, what happens inside the human nervous system when the self-image is changed was somehow. I found most of my answers in the new science of cybernetics, which restored theology as a respectable concept in science. It is rather strange that the new science of cybernetics grew out of the work of physicists and mathematicians rather than of psychologists, especially when it is understood that cybernetics has to do with teleology, the goal-striving, goal-oriented behavior of mechanical systems. Cybernetics explain what happens and what is necessary in the purposeful behavior of machines. Psychology, with all its vaunted knowledge of the human psyche, had no satisfactory answer for such a simple goal-oriented purposeful situation as, for example, how it is possible for a human being to pick up a pen from a desk. But a physicist had an answer. The proponent of many psychological theories were somewhat compared to men who speculated as to what was the outer space and on other planets, but could not tell what was in their own backyard. The new science of cybernetics made possible an important breakthrough in psychology. I myself take no credit for the breakthrough other than the recognition of it. The fact that this breakthrough came from the work of physicists and mathematicians should not surprise at all. Any breakthrough in science is likely to come from outside the system. Experts are the most thoroughly familiar with with the developed knowledge inside the prescribed boundaries of a given science. Any new knowledge must usually come from the outside, not from experts, but from what someone has defined as an input. Pasteur was not an MD. The Wright brothers were no aeronautical engineers, but bicycle mechanics. Einstein, properly speaking, was not a physicist, but a mathematician. Yet his findings in mathematics completely turned upside down all the pet theories in physics. Madame Curie was not an MD, but a physicist, yet she made important contributions to medical science. In this book, I have attempted not only to inform you of this new knowledge from the field of cybernetics, but also to demonstrate how you can use it for your own life to achieve goals that are important to you. The self-image, and here we describe general principles. Really listen to this. It's going to change your view on your own life. The self-image is the key to human personality and human behavior. Change the self-image and you change the personality and the behavior. But more than this, the self-image sets the boundaries of individual accomplishments. It defines what you can and cannot do. Expand the self-image and you expand the area of possibility. The development of an adequate, realistic self-image will seem to imbue the individual with new capabilities, talents, and literally turn failure into success. Self-image psychology has not only been proven on its own merits, but it explains many phenomena that have long been known but not properly understood in the past. For example, there is today irrefutable clinical evidence in the field of individual psychology, psychosomatic medicine, and industrial psychology that there are success-type personalities and failure-type personalities, happiness-prone personalities and unhappiness-prone personalities, health-prone personalities and disease-prone personalities. Self-image psychology throws new light on these and many other observable facts of life. It throws new light on the power of positive thinking and, more importantly, explains why it works with some individuals and not with others. Positive thinking does indeed work when it is consistent with the individual self-image. It literally cannot work when it is inconsistent with the self-image until the self-image itself had been changed. In order to understand self-image psychology and use it to your own life, you need to know something about the mechanism it employs to accomplish its goal. There is an abundance of scientific evidence that shows that the human brain and the nervous system operate pure purposefully in accordance with the known principles of cybernetics to accomplish goals of the individual. Insofar as function is concerned, the brain and nervous system constitute a marvelous and complex goal-striving mechanism, a sort of built-in automatic guidance system that works for you as a success mechanism or against you as a failure mechanism, depending on how you the operator, operated, and the goal you set for it. It is also rather ironic that cybernetics, which began as a study of machines and mechanical principles, goes far to restore the dignity of man as a unique, creative being. Psychology, which began with the study of man's psyche, or soul, almost ended by depriving man of his soul. The behaviorist, who understood neither the man nor his machine, and thereby confused the one with the other, told us that thought is merely the movement of electrons and conscious merely as chemical actions. Will and purpose were myths. Cybernetics, which began with the study of physical machines, makes no such mistake. The science of cybernetics does not tell us that a man is a machine, but that a man has and uses a machine. Moreover, it tells us how that machine functions and how it can be used. The self-image is changed for the better or worse, not by the intellect alone, but by intellectual knowledge alone, but by experiencing. Wittingly or unwittingly, you develop your self-image by your creative experiencing in the past. You can change it by the same method. It is not the child who is taught about love, but the child who has experienced love that grows into a healthy, happy, well-adjusted adult. Our present state of self-confidence and poise is the result of what we have experienced rather than what we have learned intellectually. I think this is so important. It's like for me, it was a huge aha. Self-image psychology also bridges the gap and resolves apparent conflicts between the various therapeutic methods used today. It furnishes a common denominator for direct and indirect counseling, clinical psychology, psychoanalysis, and even autosuggestion. All in one way or another use creative experiencing to build a better self-image. Regardless of theories, this is what really happens. For example, in a therapeutic situation employed by a psychoanalytic school, the analyst never criticizes, disapproves, or moralizes. Is never shocked as a patient pours out his fears, his shames, his guilt feelings, or his bad thoughts. For perhaps the first time in his life, the patient experiences acceptance as a human being and feels that his self has some worth and dignity, and he comes to accept himself, to conceive of his self in new terms. So then it goes on to explain how that psycho-cybernetic system is working. But the bottom line is those two people with the same hours of work, the same the same degree, the same work. Why is one successful and the other isn't? Because of their self-image. If that person that becomes successful has a self-image that is successful, the other person has a self-image that is doubtful, full of worry, and so this person doesn't see himself or herself as successful. This is the first thing that need to change. You can work your butt off, but if you are not seeing yourself as successful, it will always go back to the lowest denominator. You need to change your self-image because you can never outperform the vision that you have of yourself. If you would like to have more information on this, or I would say first thing is read a book. And if you need some help to guide you through the process of transformation, make an appointment. The link for my schedule is below, and I'm happy to help you. Have a wonderful day, you all. Bye for now.